Greetings and welcome to another episode of Emerging Tech Talk. I'm your host, Dan York, and today we're going to be talking about voice biometrics. I'm joined by Dan Miller, Senior Analyst with Opus Research, who are the organizers of the upcoming Voice Biometrics Conference. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Dan.
So Voice Biometrics Conference, or Voice BioCon, I've heard you call it, has been around for a bit. Can you tell a little bit of its history?
Right. So we're on year 4, and we really started to bring together, I think of it as a mixer where we bring together companies that are contemplating implementing voice biometric solutions with the vendors of solutions. So 4 years ago, it was primarily the providers of speech biometric engines, and we basically introduced members of the banking community, telecommunications, financial services in general, and government agencies to join in a discussion of how to think about implementing, because we were sort of at a point where it was just starting to take off, or so we thought. The first year, we were in Washington, D.C., and we figured that was a financial center. We thought e-government was going to be very big, and we also thought that one of the major triggers for implementation would be around compliance with government regulations or strictures around protection of financial data and that sort of thing. So we had a guy from the FFIEC talking about what the mandates were going to be, and we customarily get about 140 or so people together, and we truly try to make it, like I said, a mixer where those contemplating using the technology get some practical insights on what it's all about.
Now, it's gone from D.C. to, well, New York, or actually Jersey City. So how'd that evolution happen?
Well, we're holding 2 a year starting 4 years ago. So we've been to London twice as well. And we were in New York 2 years ago, essentially trying to get to the heart of the financial community, the insurance industry, and that sort of thing. And actually, it's a global phenomenon. So what you'll find is the technology providers this year span 4 continents. So we have, if you look at the sponsors, we have a Russian company, we have the Israelis, we have North America and Australia all represented. And it just seems that New York is one of the easy venues to get to.
Sure, sure. So if somebody were to come to this show this year, what kind of presentations would they expect to see?
Okay, so it's a day and a half, and we really start with foundational stuff. Derek Top, our head of research at Opus, and I will lead off with some level setting and definition of terms and descriptions of the major trends. This year, it's about expansion or expansiveness, if you ask me, because we're no longer discussing technologies and the merits of one biometric over another. We're talking about how authentication in general and biometric authentication is a key enabling technology that's dovetailing with many of the major trends we see in mobile commerce, in phone-based commerce, and web-based commerce. So as I said, Derek and I will start out. We have a person from Enterprise Integration Group to talk about voice authentication fitting into the horizontal applications involved in better customer service. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised. We're not talking tech. We're talking about all of the possibilities that get introduced to have the phone and essentially the web realize its potential as a customer service channel, and the things you can do when you have greater confidence that the person on the other end is not an imposter, is indeed whom he or she claims to be.
Right, so it's more about really how you apply the technology versus the technology itself.
Exactly, and you know what we're finding is, as you'll see, I mean, Voxeo is a sponsor, and we thank you for that. That there's architectures that bring in the community of hosted service providers. We're talking about its role in identity management, in privacy protection, and all sorts of things that, you know, frankly, the first few years, there was a lot of the sales were based on the fear part of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt equation. That identity theft is huge, and it's a $40 billion or whatever. There's uncounted billions in financial losses based on identity theft. That certainly remains part of the equation, but our discussions are the more positive in areas like protection of privacy to enable better healthcare or more confidence in healthcare providers and your payment systems. The way of making we have a mobility track or a mobility session, if you will, talking about how mobile phones are they're turning into your wallet, and on a global basis, there's just all sorts of things that are enabled when a voice print becomes the equivalent of a signature or an authorization of a payment and that sort of thing. And we're going to be marching through, by the end of the second day, it's all about use cases and deployment plans and the dovetailing or expansiveness of this technology across those verticals that we talked about. Healthcare, insurance, telecommunications, and then the horizontals, customer care in general, mobility, and it gets pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. So will we see on there? I see you do have some case studies. So we do actually have some folks talking about how they're actually implementing voice biometrics today.
Exactly, and the names are coming. We're nailing them down. I suggest going to voicebiocon.com agenda in the coming days. One of the interesting things had been that a couple of things that firms in banking and in some of the payment systems are understandably protective of sort of the facts and figures and
yeah, they don't want to talk about their implementation.
Right, but in the past we've had people come and speak from Chase, from major banks in Western Europe, but in this case we will indeed have speaker to be announced, and for those cases where we know the details of a use case, we will have either the vendors or I myself or another third party talk specifically about the implementation considerations, and that's just as a matter of practicality. We have all the facts. We're just sort of prying the right people in to talk about them.
Cool. So you mentioned the URL there. What is it? What is it again?
www.voicebiocon.com.
All right, and so people can go there and sign up, and that's great. So it's May 4th and 5th in Jersey City.
Yes.
And go there if you want to learn about voice biometrics and all of that.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan, for your time.
Thank you, Dan. This was a pleasure.
I should note, too, that I will be a speaker on the second day of the show on a panel about seeding the cloud and authentication as a service. Some of you will remember the other episodes I've done talking about how Voxeo's enabled voice biometrics in a hosted model. And if you go to www.voxeo.com/biometrics, you will learn more about how you can try out voice biometrics with several of the leading vendors in this space. So thanks for watching. And you can learn more about this show at blogs.voxeo.com/ETT, and do come to the show at voicebiocon.com. Thank you.